On the frozen edge of the Arctic Circle, buried in the wreckage of a fallen empire, there is a rusted metal cap bolted to the earth. It is only 9 inches wide. To a passerby, it looks like scrap. But beneath this seal lies the deepest open wound humanity has ever cut into our planet. For over 2 decades, Soviet scientists drilled into the abyss. They wanted resources. They wanted glory. They wanted to beat the Americans to the secrets of the deep. Instead, at 12 kilometers down, they found a world that defied everything they thought they knew. Water where physics said none could exist. Rock that flowed like honey. And the fossilized whispers of life from 2 billion years before the first dinosaur drew breath. May 24th, 1970. The space race was winding down, but a new frontier had opened, the race to the center of the Earth. 4 years earlier, the Americans had abandoned Project Mohole, their attempt to drill through the ocean floor. It was a spectacular failure. The Soviets saw an opportunity. On the remote Kola Peninsula, they erected the Uralmash 4E, a drilling rig built like a weapon. The target? 15,000 meters, deeper than any human technology had ever gone, deeper than Everest is tall. The man tasked with leading this mission into the unknown was David Guberman, a geophysicist who would dedicate the next 2 decades of his life to this single hole in the ground. For the first 4 years, everything went according to plan. The granite fractured as expected. Temperature rose at a predictable gradient. It was textbook. But the Earth keeps its own counsel. And at 7,000 meters, the textbook became fiction. For decades, seismic surveys had promised a transition layer called the Conrad discontinuity, the point where granite would give way to basalt. It was foundational geology, settled science. But as the drill passed 7 kilometers, no basalt appeared. The seismic models, the very maps Soviet geology was built on, were wrong. To admit this publicly would humiliate Soviet science on the world stage, so the order came from above: keep drilling, revise the models later. The hole would become both a scientific endeavor and a state secret, its discoveries buried almost as deep as the borehole itself. By 1979, Kola was the deepest point ever reached by human hands, and that is when the Earth began to bleed. The drilling mud came up saturated with hydrogen, volatile, hissing, dangerous. The rock itself seemed to be exhaling, but hydrogen was only the beginning. At 9 kilometers down, under pressures exceeding 4,000 atmospheres, the cores came up wet. This was supposed to be impossible. At these depths, rock should be impermeable, crushed so tight that no molecule could slip through. And yet, there it was, mineralized water, trapped in microscopic veins, boiling in a subterranean pressure cooker. The crust was not the solid shield they had imagined. It was fractured, porous, a wet labyrinth extending miles into the dark. When Guberman's team proposed publishing, they were told to wait. The implications were too significant, the embarrassment too great. The world would not learn the truth for another decade. 1989. Depth, 12,262 meters. A routine core sample arrived at the surface. Routine analysis began. What they found was anything but. Plankton. 24 distinct species. Microscopic fossils perfectly preserved, entombed in granite that had formed 2 billion years ago, back when life on Earth was nothing more than single-celled whispers in a primordial sea. These were not living organisms, but the organic compounds, the lipid membranes, should have been obliterated by heat and pressure eons ago. Their survival was a message from deep time, proof that the deep Earth could preserve what the surface would destroy. The researchers stared at the impossible, and then the impossible stared back. The team had modeled every variable. They had predicted temperatures of around 100 degrees Celsius at maximum depth. The sensors returned 180, nearly double. The models were wrong, again. At these temperatures, the granite ceased to behave like stone. It became plastic, soft, pliable, almost organic. Every time they withdrew the drill, the borehole would slowly ooze shut, sealing itself like a wound trying to heal. Drill strings snapped. Equipment fused with the molten rock. Years of progress would be erased in seconds. They were not drilling through stone anymore. They were drilling through something alive with heat. 1992. The Soviet Union had already collapsed. The funding had evaporated. But the real reason drilling stopped was not politics. It was physics. The team had reached a limit, not of ideology, not of ambition, but of nature itself. The Kola Super Deep Borehole reached 12,262 meters, deeper than the ocean is deep, deeper than any drill before or since. And yet, it penetrated less than 0.2% of the distance to the Earth's core. We scratched the skin of our own planet, and the planet pushed back. But what they learned reshaped our understanding of the world beneath our feet. They proved the Conrad discontinuity was a myth, a phantom conjured by imperfect instruments. They proved water could survive in conditions that should annihilate it. They proved that the deep earth could cradle the signatures of ancient life for billions of years. Years later, when asked whether the project had failed, they never reached 15 kilometers after all, Guberman reportedly gave a simple answer. We did not fail. We discovered how little we knew. That is not failure. That is the beginning of knowledge. Today, the hole remains sealed, a metal scar on the tundra. But 12 kilometers below, in the crushing silence, the plastic rocks still flow. The ancient water still boils. The fossils of a world before complex life still wait in the dark. We spent the 20th century looking upward, to the moon, to Mars, to the stars. Perhaps the real unknown was always beneath our feet. The Kola Borehole remains the deepest we've ever gone, but new projects are being proposed, deeper wells, hotter targets, stranger frontiers. Should we try again? What do you think lies in the mantle? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown.